Howdy, 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 and thank you for joining me tonight, folks. Tonight we should have a pretty good one for you. As always, we have one of our pretty much member of this channel nowadays. Good friend, someone that I think is without a doubt one of the most unsung heroes in the battle against Scientology. Before we get into that, folks, I want to talk about a couple things first. Number one is the notice from Aaron that he put out earlier today about the demonetization that's going on. The sad thing is that some of us, we're not really making any money off of it. Most of us aren't really making any money off of it anyway. And now YouTube is finding yet another way to keep folks from getting any money that they earn from it. So it's something that we have to think about, folks. Hopefully I'm not going to get hit with this stuff because I put out a lot of singular content that isn't streamed to other channels. But, for those folks who are just getting into it, and a lot of the stuff that you're doing is primarily with other channels, or almost all the content you're doing is streaming with other channels, you need to really start looking at what you're doing, especially if you're looking at getting into the monetization and things like that. Like I said, most of us ain't making any money anyway. What money we do make from YouTube, I mean, honestly, they take 30% of it off the top to begin with, and then it goes from there. So it's always fun. Secondly, I know that there's a lot of heat going on. There's a lot of things going on within the YouTube community right now, folks. All right. Let me say this, and I'm going to make this very clear right here, right now. There are people that I have become friends with, have gotten to know quite well, and I feel that they are my friends. I'm not a fair-weathered friend, folks. All right. If a friend of mine is having trouble, I'm having trouble. That's how I look at it. And I know that there's a lot of people that are coming out. I'm getting messages from people. You're aligned with this person. You're aligned with that person. You need to rethink who you're aligned with. No, folks, you need to think about who you're aligned with. And you need to think about the fact that you're coming to me and telling me who I should or should not be friends with. I do not abandon friends just because other people don't like them. All right. There are channels that are way bigger than me that they have problems with other people, but the same people have been good to me. They have been friends. They have had my back. If you don't understand, think about the fact that Clearwater Chad and I have been friends for quite a while now, even though I have tons of people coming into my messaging, my emails and things like that saying, Chad's OSA. You can't trust Chad. Don't do anything with Chad. I don't listen to that. Okay. If you do me wrong, then that's between me and you. All right. But I don't disassociate from people because someone else doesn't like them. And if folks want to come at me for that, come at me. That's how it is. I'm not that kind of friend that I back away from my friends because someone doesn't like them. Okay. They did that to Doug Kramer. They did that to several people who've already been in this community. There are other people who are not part of the SPTV community that, how are we not acting just like Scientology if we start disassociating and disfranchising people just because one person doesn't like them? Okay. That's how it is, folks. I'm just going to put it out there. Some may not like it. Some may like it. But the fact is, I'm not a fair weather friend. I don't turn my back on friends just because someone else doesn't like them. And especially when it's folks I don't even know who don't like this person that are coming at me and saying, you need to distance yourself from them. Not going to happen. All right. Give me receipts. Give me fair reason why I shouldn't be associated with someone. And if you can't give me real receipts, not hypotheticals, things like that, you got nothing. And I'm not disassociating from my friends because someone else doesn't like them. Okay. Those people can get as angry as they want. They can talk crap about me all they want to. It's not going to hurt my feelings, folks. I got some pretty damn thick skin. So that's just how it is. I am me. That's how I am. I've stood this fight with Scientology, put up with private investigators, put up with the crap they put up with me. Just found out a new string of FOIAs has come out against trying to find out personal information with my former employers. All right. We got that. We've got the the other faction that's out there, that other group that has the one person who keeps putting out hate blogs against members of SPTV. All right, we've got all that going on. Why are we continuing with even more infighting in this? Our goal is to stop Scientology. And like I said, I'm not a fair weather friend. I stand by the people that I associate with. So let's see here. We got Linda Barnaby's in here, and yes, ma'am, I watched what Aaron had to say earlier. Clearwater Chad, all the way from OSA here. Selena, how you doing? Mona Englert, one of my awesome mods. Laura Waldy's here. Sir Crepitus, one of my friends. Talked to him quite a bit. Actually, we're on the phone quite a bit with each other. Man, you all had a good talking there. Did you figure that stuff out about the StreamYard there, Sir Crepitus? Joe Gerst, how you doing? Haggis Basher, what are you eating, Haggis Basher? I saw you said you're cramming the food down your throat. Right, Fat Grammy. What am I saying? Fat Grammy is here. Dusty Soda's here. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. And I don't know if you all saw or not, but Friday night, we're going to have some enchanted readings going on. I'll pull that up so y'all can take a look at that. If you remember, Scientology is having the Battle Creek org or whatever they're calling it. They're having their big thing for that on Friday. And I'm going to, so we're going to do something special with that. Let me pull it up here, folks. So Friday, Father Ben, Sisters Lilith, Sister Steph, enchanted readings. And if you'll remember from the poster for the big thing going on in Battle Creek, so we just, we figured we'd have our own enchanted time here. All right, folks. So one of the things, as you all know, one of the things I'm very big about is I like to see different ways of going after Scientology. And I like to hear different thoughts, different plans of actions, how we're going to go in there and make this fight real. And I think one of the most underrated, most unsung heroes in that fight is my guest, who is a member of the family, someone I consider a personal friend. That's Mona, Fat Grammy. So everybody say hello to Mona.
Hey guys, how's everybody today? I was up and about earlier and I decided, you know what? My biscuits need to get back into bed. So sorry, you're stuck with my boudoir again. You guys are going to know my bedroom more than my husband does.
Well, you know what? It was nice seeing you. What was that, yesterday or the day before, when you were out there in the front yard and everything? So it was nice to see you
so
get up
nice.
there. And how'd it feel getting that sun on you?
Oh, it felt really good. It was such a beautiful day out yesterday. Hey,
And for those who
Twinsy, I
don't
didn't
know,
get a chance to say hi.
I was about to say, and for those who don't know, explain why you being out in the front yard and the driveway and all that is such a big thing. So
Because my shoulders, and actually they're starting to feel a little bit better. They're starting to get stronger. And it's really hard for me to be up in my chair. I'm not acclimated to being. I'm a T7 paraplegic, so it's from the breastbone down. And with my shoulders being blown like they are, it makes me more like a quadriplegic. And so having chair time, I'm used to being in my chair by 6:30 in the morning, and then I don't go to bed till 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I'm up in my chair that whole time. And since I've been stuck in bed, my biscuits aren't used to being in the chair so long, and I don't want to get a pressure sore.
yeah.
And pressure sores, and that's one of the easiest ways to unalive yourself as a paralyzed person, is to have a pressure sore, and I don't want that.
And it's I a lot of people, I have to bring this up pretty much every time we have you on, because there are people who just don't realize what's going on and why. I've had people send me emails, why is it that Mona's constantly in her bed and things like that? And I'm like, daggone, how many times we got to put this out there? But there's a lot of people who are going to be here for the first time who don't know what's going on.
I don't mind.
I want to
don't
make
mind
sure
at all. Yep. And so it was so cool just to be outside, enjoy the sunshine yesterday. And the last couple of years, I've been bucket gardening with those
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
canvas bags, bag
Yep.
gardening. And it has just been, I am admittedly the place where all green things go to die. I am the hospice of plants. Okay.
Who are you talking about? I grow. I can't even grow weeds. So
Well, I've got a beautiful weed garden going this year, so I haven't been able to plant anything. But
did you see that
my
picture I posted of
strawberries are
my
going.
mama's yard?
I did.
She literally. We walked out back and I looked at it and I go, Mom, this is beautiful. And she goes, you want to hear something funny? And I go, what's that? And she goes, I didn't plant none of this. I go, what? She goes, nope. She goes, you see these right here? These are, and she knows the scientific name, common name, and all that. I had planted these over there, which is like 100 feet away 3 years ago, and they didn't take. And suddenly now they're popping up over here. These
Little
I have no
volunteers.
idea where they came from. And she's just going through, and pretty much everything that was out there she hadn't planted, but there it is. And I'm like, daggone, Mom.
Right.
So I did something different this year. I went out back and trenched out. We got corn, watermelon, and pumpkins planted out there for the deer for the fall. And then
Nice.
I'm actually surprised those are actually sprouting and they're starting to grow. I can't believe they actually did something for once. So I'm real surprised by that. Probably the only thing I've ever been good at growing are rose bushes. That's the only thing I can grow. I have to get them when they're almost dead, where they just look like a dry stick. I put them in a bucket for a week of fresh water, put plant food and stuff like that in there for them, and then I go out and I plant them in the ground, and amazingly they come back to life. I've got one rose bush. I have to keep trimming it because it gets over 10 foot in diameter.
Wow,
And
that's pretty cool.
yeah, well,
But those canvas bags are pretty.
they're
They're
neat.
they're really neat. I mean, you have to water them a lot, but so for the last 2 years, I've been able to grow enough vegetables and fruit to last me throughout the whole winter. This winter, I'm
Yeah.
going to have to, pay through the news through Walmart, but
Have you thought about doing the indoor setup like that, where you can actually grow them throughout the wintertime indoors, just as long as they're getting sunlight and everything?
I have, but room really is the
Oh, yeah.
issue there. So,
Well, something I thought was really interesting. When I'd gotten to, it had been the first time in a long time I got over to Thailand, and the hotel I was staying at when I first arrived was they had this wall that was just covered with those little canvas bags and things growing out of them. And I was talking to the folks that work there, and they're like, "Oh, we don't do anything with them. There's a local guy who comes in and he takes care of all of it, and we like it because it gives us something nice for the walls. And he just comes and takes all the vegetables and stuff off of them." And I was like, "Wow, that's just crazy." And folks, if you were one of the folks who was gifted with a membership from Sir Crepitus, make sure you let him know thank you and appreciate it. So tonight we're talking about thinking outside the box. There's been a lot of interest in and a lot of focus on the protesting and things like that. A lot of people, I get emails all the time, people saying, "You're not doing enough. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that?" They don't understand that behind the scenes, we have a lot going on. And there's a lot that we don't put out there, because if we put it out there, then the dark side factions are going to know what we're planning to do, and they're going to have ways of trying to fight it for us. So that's why
well, I
we
know
don't.
there was talk this morning on somebody else's channel about what Audit LA and Michael and I do behind the scenes, or whatever. I don't want to get into all of that, but that's what we do behind the scenes. It's just a little think tank. It's just thinking outside the box of where could we hit, what could we do, what effect could we have, what are these process, what's good ideas or bad ideas.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and that's what it takes, is just having little think tanks.
And you
That's
need
all.
that, because you need constructive criticism, plus you also need support. when you're
Mhm.
doing things like that. And everybody say thank you. They say hello to my my buddy Joe Pinto there. Joe has put out some fantastic content, a lot of meditation, self-reflection kind of stuff. You know, I've talked about it many times. I'll have a rough day or something like that. I can throw on some of his content and it helps to get me calm down. And that's it's nice to have something like that. And that's someone I also consider a friend. Joe's a really good guy. Too bad he's out of Florida. But nobody can be perfect. So there we go.
That's right.
So let's talk about a few of the things that you've been thinking about, or not just
So
thinking.
I have a whole list. And guess what? Sir Crepitus gifted me something off my wish list, which was some printer ink. So I haven't been able to go to
Wow.
Walmart. Guess what? I got to print. Oh my gosh.
You have you
Thanks,
thought
Sir
about getting
Crepitus.
the Walmart membership where you can get it delivered for free to your home?
Well, not here. They charge quite a bit,
Oh,
even
okay.
though, because I live more than like 5 miles away from it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the wife discovered that and she's just like, oh yeah.
I know.
So
Something,
all
if I
right.
was super desperate, I could, but that's
Okay.
so. This is kind of the list of things that have gone through my ADD, ADHD brain. And as I have said plenty times in the past, a lot of times it's easier just to follow the bouncing ball in my head of all the different things that are going on. These are
Right.
things that I have not personally started. Some of them I have, some of them I haven't. But they're all things that can be done. And when you say, geez, that's a good idea, somebody ought to do that, maybe you should take that as a push and pull, a poke from the Holy Spirit and go, well, maybe you should. Maybe you should look at this.
Right.
So the first thing that have been talking about was those FBI claims and how to extend them to the never ends. And
Okay.
there's two different ways. One Audit LA is working on, and she's looking at getting a document that people can submit to the Department of Justice. Maybe people that have been fair gamed, maybe people that have had to deal with emotional issues, whatever. Maybe they're a spouse or a significant other of a person that was in. So those type of claims. And then
Okay.
the other section of it is for us to file in lieu of the survivors. And I've got a sheet I'm building right now. I put a thing on my community page asking some folks to see if they wouldn't mind me using their videos. Because there's quite a few people, like Liz Ferris said, yeah, sure. Serge has said, yeah, sure. But
Right.
we could put a little list together of receipts and say, why haven't you done something about this? To not only the Department of Justice, but to our Congress people. So it
Right.
could be a talking point, a talking paper with receipts.
Right. Well,
So that's the other thing I'm working on.
that's something that, especially on like my end, is I like that about filing the claims with the FBI or the Department of Justice for someone like myself, with the FOIAs being posted against me, the private investigators being followed, all those different things. That really, those are things that for someone like me, that's something that's of interest. I don't worry about the local PD when it comes to doing that here. They don't know much, if anything, about it. They know that there are people that are targeting me, and then there are people that are doing certain things. But what I'm looking for is a combination of the never ends along with the survivors. And that starts showing a clear pattern throughout not just the United States, but worldwide.
It
As
does.
you go against Scientology and suddenly all these things are happening to you, how is that not all connected? And, I know that they have great attorneys on their side, but how do you fight when you literally have hundreds of people coming forward going, this happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to them, this happened to another person? And it's literally just a mountain of complaints that are coming in. How do
Yep.
you,
And
how do,
again, using the Trojan horse of complaints, going through
yep,
complaining against the FBI. The
yeah,
FBI has not afforded protection or due process. And we have to
yeah,
just keep hammering on that.
yeah. And Joe was asking, can I stand outside with a sign saying it's not a religion on a sidewalk in Clearwater? And Joe, if you're exercising your First Amendment freedom of speech, there's been a lot of people who have done that. I've been down there with Lori Plays, Farrell Sherrill, Aaron Smith Levin. We've been down there doing the live streams, but there are a lot of folks who were there with us who had signs declaring Scientology is not a religion, declaring that they have people within the organization who have done essays on children, things like that. So if it's your First Amendment right, then I don't see how they can stop you from doing it. What their new tactic appears to be is, instead of saying, oh, these people are out there, it's illegal for them to be out there, they're on our property, or they're doing this or that. Now what they're doing is they're filing the civil complaints of it's hate speech. All right. It's that it's going against religious rights, things like that. That's their next thing that they're doing. As of right now, it's going to be real iffy whether or not any of that's going to be able to stand. I know that they're going to fight it tooth and nail to try to make it stand, but the fact is they're not the ones who get to make that decision. That's a court of law that actually gets to make that decision, not them. So
Right.
let's talk about we were talking about petitions for neighbors, blue stuff.
Okay.
What's that?
So the blue building
Okay.
has all of those lovely planters that were planted. They have music that blares. So does
Right.
Clearwater. They have
I've experienced that personally when Chad and I were down there and we were waiting to meet up with Lori Plays and Farrell Sherrill. We were walking under the partition in front of the Fort Harrison. And the moment that we crossed under that partition, they started playing copyrighted music. So I had to
yep.
mute it. And the minute we walked out from underneath of it, the music stopped. And
Well,
so,
the last couple of days, week after the encampment, you see a lot of the people walking by and talking to the protesters, the neighbors, and that guy with the megaphone across the street that's like, knock it off, turn the
yeah,
music down. That's just funnier than hell. But
yeah.
they're saying, what can we do about this? So they're using way too many permits. There is a number of permits they can take. But what they're doing is they say 4810 Sunset and then 4830, and I know these aren't the right addresses,
And then,
L.
like
Ron
you were
Hubbard Way.
saying,
So they're pulling permits,
they have multiple incorporations within their organization, and if they're
pulling the
using
permits.
if they're using different parts of their organization to pull these permits, then they're not violating the numbers that they can have technically. So
Technically, but the neighbors can complain. And one of I mean, they don't have the right signage. They they may have 51% of the neighbors saying yes, it's okay, because they own quite a few of the properties. But so the petition, super cool, is a YouTube member who does a lot with the permits. And on her community page, she has a crap ton of information on the permits and stuff. She's making a petition form. The protesters there, just somebody will just print a bunch of them out and hand them out to the neighbors. The neighbors can then they get them signed and take them to their community council meetings on Monday or Tuesday nights, whatever night their one is. And Audit said she's going to help along with that. And that's a good way for the neighborhood councils to say, hey, they're not being very good aloha neighbors, as Natalie would say.
right,
They're
and
not being very aloha.
I think that's something else that can actually start having some effect, is the fact of you have people who are not involved but are being victims of what is going on the part of Scientology, where they're playing this music, they're constantly having these permits to shut down sidewalks, streets, things like that. At what point does that become a situation where they are infringing upon the rights of the neighbors around? And that's an excellent point on that. And Kelly BC, yep, saw Aaron's video, talked to a few different people about it. Just got to see what we got to do what we got to do about this. And Haggis Basher, Would they actually have to prove they are a religion? Well, the thing is that the federal government, the IRS, has already declared them a religion. So that's out of the ballpark right there, because they're already in that level. So there's not that's not a real question
Right.
there on that. And I'm not saying you don't have a right to ask a question or it's a stupid question. What I'm saying is that okay, thank you, Sir Crepitus. But the thing is that they're already acknowledged as a religion, so it takes that right out of the game.
It
So
does. That's kind of a moot point to argue right now.
yeah,
So the other part of that is, do the neighbors, having more education for the neighbors? Do the neighbors know that L. Ron Hubbard is a convicted felon? I
yeah.
mean, maybe make little pamphlets or put that right in the
And
petitions.
that's one of the things that's really getting me is how these cities and these government entities are not just sounding the alarms like crazy over the claims and the statements from the victims of targeting children.
Right?
That blows my mind, when we know through the stories of Serge, through the stories of Miriam, through the stories of how many different survivors, that this is what they're doing. And but it seems like it just keeps falling on deaf ears. And I don't understand it.
Well,
Uh,
these are all the ways outside the box that aren't,
mm,
maybe they've been done in the past a little here and there, but if we do it as a community effort, community meaning worldwide, streamer worldwide, where all of us never ends, as an effort, it's going to start to take notice. I mean, the next one is the
child
pedo,
child protection websites, yeah, where
yeah, the
registries,
pedo website, where it's you you have to be on that registry if you've SA'd a, I think anybody, but especially a child, right? So
yeah,
if you know of things that have happened and somebody's on that list, call it out.
yeah. And I think that that's something, especially if you have children yourself, that's something that every neighborhood that we looked at when we bought the house here, our children were still young. And it was back during the infancy of these kinds of things. So here in Michigan, they have the state run website that will tell you these people are registered
Yep.
and this is where they live.
This is where
So
they live. This is where they work.
yep. And knowing that, because I was in law enforcement, and actually at that time I was the one who all those people had to come to in the city where I worked. They had to come to me to do their registry. So I knew about these websites. I knew about the different things that were going on, and I knew how to look into that.
Yeah, the only hiccup there is that the pedos from Scientology get audited or ethics handled instead of being um, given the information to the police. However, okay, I'm just going to say this generally because it just is. Once a pedo, always a pedo, and they've probably been caught outside of there too.
right.
And it may cross over. That information may be out there in the law enforcement world or the judicial world. So why, let's look.
Yeah. And Nissa, I know that there's a lot going on with the permits they pulled, the construction they're going to be doing and all that. But you have to, if you start looking into construction codes, all those different things, the thing is that knowing that having known people who actually went out and did the inspections on that, when I talk to them, I'm like, how come every time you come away from a construction site, they get issued a violation? They would laugh and say, well, there honestly isn't a construction site going on that doesn't have something that's a violation. So that's a true statement as in general how it's going, but it's whether or not the city county, state, or whatever is going to even do anything about it. So we, that's a pretty well-known thing, but we got to look into what actually the construction that's being going on and what they're doing. So haggis basher, that part angers me, because many times do the victims have to repeat that to LAPD and they smirk and walk away. That's the sad thing about it. But the way that our system's built up, that's how they do it. And that's how it works. And unfortunately, that's a system that we have. I have a real problem with, if almost every state that I know of now, you have to go through X amount of years of college before you're allowed to take the bar exam. It used to be you could sit down and read all of the information that was needed to pass the bar exam to become a licensed practicing attorney. Now they made it so you have to go through college, you have to do all these different things. And it just seems like our legal system is owned by, governed by, and run by attorneys. So they make it so that the speech that's used in court, the way that they write out all of their motions and things like that, everything is done in legalese, which is the easiest way to talk about it. There were petitions that went out. I believe there's actually, Mona, you might remember this, where they wanted to make a state law here in Michigan that all court filings and all court decisions had to be in common verbiage. And the reason for that was, you have people that go in and they're having to go through the legal system, and they have to go by the rules of the legal system to be able to fight, or on either side, as plaintiff, defendant, as to bring some kind of action in court. You literally have to hire an attorney, and they'll sit there and they'll tell you, if someone says, well, no, I would like to represent myself, I can't afford an attorney, they're basically laughed at and mocked.
Because they don't know all the verbiage, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it comes down to. So I think that our entire legal system in this country is probably just as corrupt as anything else. You look at a lot of politicians, how many percentages of politicians are attorneys? So they're not going to turn around and say, well, we need to make it easier for people to be able to represent themselves. Well, no, they can't keep this.
They don't want to put themselves out of work.
Yeah.
It's job security for them.
Yeah.
Can I, Kitzel Pie, I believe that's how you pronounce your name. I had seen what you wrote twice. Thank you very much. However, the issue is, back in 1993 and a little bit before, is that's the reason, one of the reasons they gained their 501c3 status back, is because California didn't take it away. California was very liberal with them and left them keep it, even though federally they didn't have it. So we need to get them to not give them the 501c3 status. So I understand what you're saying, but California has been very liberal and nice to Church of Scientology.
Yeah, and I'd start that because Kitzel, the thing is that, and this is one of the things where we're fighting. Something may be legal or illegal, but the fact is unless the state or the local governments are willing to do anything about it, it doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal. If they won't do anything about it, then nothing's going to happen with it. That's why we're looking at these different ways that we're going of approaching this fight with Scientology, because doesn't matter how we feel about it. We can sit there and say, well, that's not legal, you can't do that. But that they, oh, well, our hands are tied. Oh, by the way, thank you for the donations to, our Christmas party, and stuff like that. So
they're normally all about the money. So, okay, next, the school vetoes. How about going to the state school board to talk to them about how they are licensing schools, the Mace Kingsley School, the Delphi Center, the other one that I can't remember the name of. How are they able to be licensed schools when they promote and use the writings of a convicted felon as their doctrine, as their
let's
stuff?
think about it. What state allows convicted felons to be teachers?
They don't. And would you, if Charles Manson wrote a book or wrote theory or wrote practice and policies, would they let him have a school
Yeah, and
based
that's
on Charles Manson stuff or Jim Jones?
yeah, or
Come
even
on.
who's the FLDS guy that's in prison now?
Warren Jeffs.
Yeah, I mean, are they gonna teach Jeffonomics, those kind of things? I mean, no, they're not going to do it. And I think it's a very interesting, very novel approach at going at this. You know, you have if you're
You
going to
asked
say
for
you are,
outside the box.
yeah. And Miss Sunrise Dawn, how dare you? Beagles are nothing but loving and helpful. So trying to take it out on your dog. Oh my goodness. Uh, let's see here. Protest. And this is something I brought up before. I'm glad you brought it up again. Protesting Mayor Karen Bass being okay with child abuse. I think
Get right
that
to the
is,
point. Big O sign.
yeah,
Why are you okay with child abuse? Why
absolutely.
just that's all you could even do a silent protest. One big sign.
And the next one, which I think is really great, and it was brought up in the live stream where we had Sir Crepitus, Clearwater Chad, and Jeffrey Augustine on here, was the fact of elder abuse, SSI, SSA, SSDI. What is LTC?
Long-term care and memory care,
And
and then
then
the rehab units. So
and
long-term care, and let me explain this just a little bit. Long-term care are your retirement homes
mhm,
that you're there for a long time. Memory care is usually Alzheimer's patients or dementia patients. And then the rehab units are where they're temporarily there. They had a hip replaced, so they go there for 30 days or whatever.
right.
Well, when a person I've been through this, not only my mother, but my sister. My sister had cerebral palsy. So we had Social Security state throughout, since she was born, really. And long-term care, when a person goes into a long-term care unit or a memory unit, after 30 days, then anything that they receive monetarily, whether it's their retirement, their Social Security disability, any funds that they receive, the long-term care facility can take except for $50 a month.
Yeah, and that's one of those interesting things. You have the nursing homes when someone goes into there.
Yep,
The stories about the fact that by being entered into that nursing home, you sign over the rights to any property owned by that person or any bank accounts that they own. And basically, that facility takes the property, sells it, and then takes any and all money that's in your accounts. And
that's state by state. Yeah, different states have different rules for that. It really depends on what the states are. California is not that way.
okay,
However, Florida is that way.
Michigan is
And
also.
the problem being is that you have so many elders now in the blue buildings, and I'm just using the blue buildings because they're the ones you may have them in the Fort Harrison also. But in the blue buildings, you have so many people, and we saw that one day where that gentleman was sitting outside and one of the Sea Org members was getting a breathing treatment ready for him.
Mhm.
To where I'm wondering, and I'm just surmising, I don't know this for a fact, but this is a good project for somebody there, is to find out if any portions of their building are now qualified as long-term care or memory care.
That was
Because if they are, then they're stealing their monies for them to stay there.
I was thinking about when I saw this, I was thinking back about the Heber Jinch story about
Yep.
Bob Ferris and what had been going on with them and how it was, you got Heber is living in this facility where he supposedly had a nurse that's working with him. And I want to know, one of the questions I have about it is that actually a registered nurse? Is it a CNA? What is it? Because if you're sitting there, I don't know about in California, but if you are approached by the police and you say, I'm an attorney, but you're not a licensed attorney, that's a crime. If you say you're a doctor, if you say you're a nurse and you're not actually one of those things, that's a crime. So that's one of the things I've been really interested in, is the fact of whether or not that person who was claiming to be a nurse was a nurse. And then I wanted to know also what's going on. Is he getting Social Security? Is that money being automatically routed in?
Right.
Are they actually a licensed
And
senior
I can
care?
almost guarantee you that it is being taken, even if they don't have. Now, I know in my state, not Michigan, but in Alaska, they had what's called the Certificate of Need program.
Okay.
And basically, it went through the legislative branch that there can only be, as I said, I'm just throwing numbers out there, 100 long-term care beds for the state. That way, it kept companies from coming in and opening them up, just doing it, and kept supply and demand under control.
Yeah, and
And
that's the
where
thing
I
is,
think California also has it, but if they're opening beds in the blue building for long-term care or a pseudo long-term care, man, they could get slapped with fines for going past a certificate of need or going against the certificate of need. So
right.
that's, you said outside the box. That's another outside the box.
That's it's very interesting how all this, how all this works. The June 2020, Mike Brown probably got all the names that his mom was roomed with in the Sea Org. I hope family members were contacted to have a welfare checkup. I can't speak for as to whether or not Mike's done that or not, but what I do know is Mike is a pretty stand-up person. So, but you also have to remember his focus has been on his mother, getting her better in her health situation and what's going on, and then dealing with all the problems outside of that. So it's possible that he's just hasn't had time to do it. You got to remember, he is still an active member of the United States Army. Um, he is literally works in a program that's basically like Top Gun for helicopter pilots. And on top of that, so if you don't think that's going to be pretty in depth and intense, now he's got a mother that has failing health, and he's been doing everything that he can to make sure she's getting back into better health. So, these are all things that we have to work on, folks. It's like we said a million times, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. All right. So what is WIB?
WIB is a workforce investment board. Every state has a workforce investment board, including the territories. And what the workforce investment board is, it's a policy board that all your job centers, all your unemployment, our old unemployment centers, workforce development, health and social services, food stamps, all of that, all those federal monies come through to each state via a workforce investment board that creates the policy for that. Now they have a list of, I think California has 13 or 14 special classes of or categories of people, youth, unemployed or underemployed, unemployed, underskilled. Those are different categories of people where they have funds set aside. Homeless, veterans, those felons. So a class can be created. I used to be the director of the one for Alaska, which is why I know all of this. But a class could be created for victims of emergency situations. There are already for domestic violence survivors. These people could be put into that. So that way there is an emergency fund. And I'm thinking this because SPTV is going to be limited on the amount of money that gets put into there. And let's say next week the FBI comes through and says, oh, close them all down. Where are those people going to go? Who's
Right.
going to house them? where's all that emergency money? To where we as a SPTV community, the never-ends maybe, we need to think about that and say, this is a step in preparation of people getting out. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to blow, well, today maybe you can get emergency money from Aaron or the SPTV Foundation, but why not hook up the SPTV Foundation with the Workforce Investment Board to direct emergency funding just for that?
That's
And
a
maybe it's
really
just
good
those,
idea.
the main states, maybe Illinois, Florida, and California to begin with.
That's a
Yes, I do know Ron Painter.
that's a
And
really good one.
so that's another outside the box. Okay, so
Let's see
pro-
here. Rib Guy was saying,
protest outside the governor's office, your senator's offices, your Congress.
yeah. Well, Rib Guy was talking, and this is on the prior one about the elder abuse. When working at a Narcanon, they did everything they could in order to word the stages of the program in critical terms so insurance would pay. That's not an uncommon thing. There are a lot of organizations that have been through that have actually ended up getting themselves in trouble because they word it in a way that it's medical or whatever, but when they actually dig into the treatment itself, it doesn't meet the criteria. And battles. The thing is that I don't know specifically what happened with your question or your statement that you made, but there's a few things you got to look into it. Number one, I have this set so that it's subscribers only. You have to have been a subscriber for 10 minutes, and that's simply because we get so many trolls that are popping in and out that are causing problems. And then number two, it's set to 60 seconds, so you only have a limited amount of characters. That's the letters, numbers, spaces, and all that. You only have a limited amount of those, and if you go over that, it won't let things work right. Also, if you try posting too quickly in an amount of time, it can do that as well. Not knowing what your statement or your question or your comment was, I really can't tell you the exact answer, but those are generally some of the things that are coming up. Let's see. Peter's question is, when first responders show up to a call for service, they sometimes want to get the ID of the protester. While they get a pass, should we provide a brief profile to the first responders? It's going to be every person's decision what they want to do. Okay. If you haven't committed a crime and if they're there to investigate Mona, and they come and they want to talk to me and they go, hey, did you see this? Well, I'm not really getting involved. And they say, well, let me see your ID. No, you don't have a right to my ID. I have that right. So I don't advise people either way on those kinds of things. It's going to be your own personal decision. Just remember that if they say they have a legitimate investigation going on and you are either a witness to that investigation or you have something and they have the right to demand your ID and you refuse it, you can get in criminal charges, but that's if they have a right to demand it. Problem is, how do you know on scene whether or not they have the authority to ask what they're asking? While
you're thinking, while you're looking and reading, so the protest at the governor's and the senators and the congressmen's offices, if somebody could produce a one-page flyer, handout, something that catches your eye, catches your statement, it's a quick and easy, that would be really cool. And then maybe you could put it on Super Cool's or Pup Groomers page to where people could print it off. Just something they could hand them.
Yeah. But this thing right here, the protests, the governor, the senators, the Congress officials' offices and things like that, where those really get to be something else and something's going on with my, there we go. My screen there, it just went blank for some reason. That, when you start putting things out like, Congresswoman Mona is refusing to do anything about Scientology or even speak about Scientology, even though we presented her with evidence that there has been child SA that has been covered up, hidden, and that it's still ongoing. There are child abuse complaints that are going in, but yet Congressperson such and such refuses to talk about it. Believe me, they do not want that kind of stuff hitting the airwaves.
Yep,
That
and they, this year is what every single seat is up for Congress. So that's a good year to do it. We have a
every
presidential
seat's up.
election.
Wow. Let's see. Mona Engler, do they need probable cause? Are you talking about in a situation where they're requiring ID? The thing is that if they're investigating a legitimate crime or incident, then the thing is that it's going to fall under a lot of different categories. I can tell you that as a police officer, if I was dealing with someone, it's a very drawn out thing. If I was dealing with someone that I was investigating for a possible crime and I directed them to give me their ID, a perfect example is a traffic stop. Now you got to remember, everything until a court decides that you have committed that crime, until a judge or a jury has said that you've committed that crime, you're not convicted of that crime. You're suspected of that crime. You may be charged with that crime at a later point, but until you actually get an actual ruling from a court that you have violated the law and you have committed that act, everything is basically under a suspect phase, and that's what they're going with. So if I pull you over for a traffic violation and I say, hey, I need your license, registration, proof of insurance, and you say, well, under such and such and such, no, we're not going to have this discussion. You are directed under state law to give me that information. Well, under under the 14th
Have you ever
Amendment,
had anybody tell you that they're a sovereign citizen?
yeah, I've run into them before, but you see, we got this thing that they conveniently forget. In most of the times that I dealt with them, was they don't seem to understand that we have a 14th Amendment to the Constitution that says the states have the right to enact their own laws. So therefore, states have the right to create their own constitution, create their own laws, as long as they're not in violation of federal law. Well,
Right.
under that, states have the right to issue permits, which are called driver's licenses. They have the right to issue registration for motor vehicles. They have the right to demand that anyone who's going to operate has those things while they're on the road operating a motor vehicle. And that's conveniently forgotten about by a lot of these folks who are spouting in what would be considered sov sit kind of situations. Is, I don't have to show you anything. I'm not driving. I didn't say you're driving. I said you're operating a motor vehicle. Well, I'm not operating. Well, actually, under the 14th Amendment, under state law, you are operating. So you need to make sure that you can actually demand identification from those folks. If they refuse it, then they can be placed under arrest for obstruction of justice. And those are the things you got to think about. If they have a legitimate reason to be involved with you and a legitimate reason to investigate an actual crime, and you are refusing to identify, you might be someone who you might be able to get in trouble for it. So you need to think these things out when you're doing it. But if you know that you're not involved in anything, say I'm standing 10 feet over here and Sir Crepitus comes up and decides to spit on the sidewalk, and the police come up to me and they go, were you involved in that? No. Give me your ID. Excuse me? I'm standing over here waiting for a bus. I have nothing to do with that. I didn't even see him do it. So don't come at, I'm not giving you my identification. That's a different kind of situation. So, all right. This one I saw and I'm really interested in, filed judgments.
So I gave a link, go up a little bit on the comments there. I just posted a link.
Yeah, I saw it. There we go.
That is a link for the California judges to file complaints against California judges, as in, i.e., the child judge that just signed the TROs for Scotty and Danny.
And folks,
Uh,
in a situation like that, you can literally go on Google. I'm gonna pop that up real quick so I can show folks. You can literally go up on, you can literally go to Google, and what I did, and this is what I've done in the past for this, is you just type in, how do I file a complaint against a judge? All right. And it's going to come up with that. All you have to do is pop in your state. All right. Like, and oftentimes, because I live in Michigan, that's what's going to come up in the autofill for me, is it's automatically going to go for the state of Michigan. So if you think that you have a legitimate grievance against the judge for an action that they've done, and you think that they were acting out of line, you can go in each state and you should be able to pull up a way to file a complaint against a judge and have that looked into or investigated. So those are things that, those are things that you can literally do yourself. But remember, when you file these complaints, one of the things you need to make sure that you're doing is you need to make sure that you're looking at, is this a legitimate complaint? Okay, because you got to remember, they're going to get hundreds, if not thousands, of complaints against judges a year. So, and if they find that there's nothing, you got to remember also, it's judges and attorneys who are the ones in most states that are going to be the ones who are going through this stuff. So you got to make sure you got your stuff on point, and you got to make sure that you can actually show that there was a violation of either ethics or state law, or of under federal law or constitutional law. You got to make sure that it stands up, and you don't want
it can't be, he just hurt my feelings.
Yep. That's an excellent point there. A lot of judges say things that a lot of us don't like. A lot of judges can come across as being very aloof or very demanding, or just not good people in the first place. A lot of them have what people think are attitudes, and a lot of people think that judges think themselves better than other people. So they get a lot of complaints against them. Let's see here.
We're going to get into the next three.
Okay.
Are there, how many, I had said if we have any attorneys. Do we have any attorneys in the group tonight?
Is Janelle
if you're an attorney, say one.
Yeah, if you are an attorney, put one into the chat. I don't see Janelle in here tonight, and I know that Janelle, while not a practicing attorney at this time, is an attorney and pretty daggone smart.
So it was just, I want to pick some brains while they're in here. I know Carrie J and Two Sandwiches are both attorneys.
There's a few of them who pop in and out.
Yeah. So this next case, the suit that is in arbitration right now for Val Haney, the lady that escaped by getting in the trunk of a filmmaker's car, and then she's in arbitration. This is where all that arbitration stuff is going on right now.
Right.
And the judge that was removed from the case had a preliminary finding. He was going to give a ruling of the arbitration, and it's been kicked, the can's been kicked down the road for right now. But the arbitration that they're putting her through is like 5 days of hell. And they basically say in the arbitration that she's not allowed to take notes, have a lawyer, or film it or record it. So
from what I'm hearing is she's basically has to sit there and be screamed at and told that she has no rights and that she's wrong in everything that she's doing, and just basically take a verbal beating while she's there.
So if people could clip that, I wasn't wise enough to get a clip to it, but I know Aaron just did a video on it if you wanted to look it up for that. But let's make that go viral.
Right.
let's all put it out in the airwaves and make it go viral.
And Bonnie Bell, yeah, it does happen. The difference is whether or not the federal government is going to go against it. Michigan is one like that. There are a lot. There are cities that literally go in conflict of federal laws, but it comes down to whether or not the federal government is going to take action against them. So, I mean, that's just a situation, but the states have the ability to do that. And, by the way that the things are set up, they're not supposed to be in violation of federal law. But that's also one of those things making the states sovereign in and of themselves of being able to write their own laws is if they feel that a federal law is not constitutional or doesn't meet the requirements of being a constitutionally sound law, states do pass laws in many cases where it is in direct conflict with federal law. I'm just stating what it's supposed to be. Here's the thing: what is supposed to be and what actually happens aren't always the same thing. Is it the 10th, Colonel Brock? Okay, then it's the 10th. I'm sorry. But that's just that's just how it is. What is the 14th? I thought that was the one. You know what? Nowadays
Isn't the
I'm lucky I
14th a
remember
woman's right to vote? I don't know.
nowadays I'm lucky I even remember to come and do the live stream. So that yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the fun ones.
All right.
I cannot wait for this to go to the Supreme Court because this is where it's going. The religious rights versus constitutional rights. The First Amendment is the right to free speech and religion, correct? It's both.
Yeah. It's also freedom of the press, and it covers several things.
So where do, and this is, it is thinking outside the box because this is where it needs to head, is one-page papers or maybe some theses going, watch the bouncing balls of, if you had a religion that believed in human sacrifice, would that overtake, would it be your religious right to kill somebody?
And that's something that a lot of, when it comes down to these kinds of things and these kinds of arguments, you have the folks who are pushing for the religious rights are like, oh, that's so extreme. Why would you bring something like that up? But it's true. I mean, let's face it. If you're saying that freedom of religion is absolute, then why can't you do that? Which also, when it comes to freedom of speech, why can't you run into a packed movie theater and scream fire? All right. And this is where it needs to start heading to and start getting things taken care of, because we have the problems in this where you have judges in lower courts will oftentimes side to the easiest thing to do, because they know that it's going to be appealed and it's going to go nowhere till it hits the appeals court. So as I've heard it personally from judges, they will say that, I'm just siding with this because it meets with criteria of the law as best as I can see. Doesn't matter what I do anyway, because it's going to go to the appeals court and they're going to make their decision on it. So there are judges who will take the easy way out on these things, and it's a fact.
And I know human sacrifice is an extreme, but what about child abuse?
Yeah.
Their doctrine, the Church of Scientology's doctrine is abusing children, is abusing people, it's abusing the elderly. And how is that religious right or that religious doctrine, how can that be legal when it's illegal? It's against public policy. It's illegal to abuse a child or to essay a child or essay anybody, but especially a child.
And I think that, something that also gets me with this is that, this goes back to your member of Congress, your senators, things like that. I mean, the fact that these things are being presented, yet they're not looking into it. I mean, these are why you have to be able to scream it to the top of the mountain.
So then
The journey
go ahead.
2020, the abuse would need to be judged by evidence and court ordered as such. That's the hard part. To begin the investigation, you need the statements of the victims. And that's where that begins. All right. And it's kind of hard when you have 50 people stand up and say, I was abused and nothing happened. And the people that did this to me got sent to a different country. I've been amazed by the fact that the best example is the Catholic Church. What happened? I was amazed that the church itself was not hit with different charges for conspiracy and the things like that. And that's where it really got me is you have this, and it's not just happening in Detroit. It's not just happening in Chicago. It's happening multiple places throughout the country and even the world. But yet, and it's all happening under the same organization. And they're doing basically a lot of the same things that are happening in Scientology, where the supposed suspects or the bad parties are being moved to different locations. Instead of dealing with that person like they should have been doing, they moved them elsewhere. And why the organization itself was not gone after. But it also shows you that the feeling that nothing can happen just doesn't last anymore. I think that what happened with the Catholic Church and with the priests and the things that they were doing is an excellent example that when enough voices are rising up, they take action and things happen. So that's another thing we need to be thinking about, is the simple fact we can't let ourselves be silenced. You have to keep screaming it. At some point, somebody's got to pay attention. And, that's the thing. I was listening last night to a major live streamer podcaster talking about, Chad and I were in Clearwater and we were going to be protesting against Scientology. And the other people that were in that podcast on the panel were all like, ooh, your name's going on a list somewhere. And they were, these are folks who have nothing to do with Scientology whatsoever, but they're all like, whoa. So, it's getting out there and people are starting to pay attention to these protests and to the things that are going on. We just have to continue to keep this fight going.
Colonel Brock, if I can ask you on that comment, we
Which
convicted a dad for SA on his daughter, 4 counts, each with the first and last time. He got 80 years. You were a survivor, correct? Was that in Scientology?
And which
Colonel
without
Brock?
saying names, I've never heard of this one, so it's kind of hard for me to make a statement on it. Here's something interesting from Flea Factory. When someone's religion interferes with another's right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, someone else's civil rights, it's no longer a freedom of religion, it's oppression.
Amen.
And that's how I feel. Again, the big problem with these things is, and he's got to wait a minute before he was on a jury on that. Okay. But the thing is that until we can get the authorities to actually get off their butts and do their job, that's, it doesn't matter how much they oppress or they violate rights or things like that. We have to keep up this fight. That's the only way that we're going to start getting the actual movement that's needed. Let's see here. And Bonnie Bell, parents are signing children over to Scientology. Parents consent for their children every day. you need to start withholding. And I agree with that as well. But
I
if
agree.
you can't, but one of the things you also have to think about is that's one of the steps we may be able to take against them, is going at those parents who are signing their children over and allowing their children to be abused. We have to start somewhere. But our goal is no child as a victim. Stop the victimization of children across the board. And the way you do that is you start holding the organization accountable as well. You go in and you show that these things are happening. We have all these folks that have been victimized and have been traumatized for the rest of their life by what happened in the hands of this organization. And then that's how we start doing that. If you take this organization down based on those things, then that's how you stop this. But also, you have to remember that not every war is just the culmination of everything. They are little battles here, little battles there. These are the things that start building us towards the bigger movements. And that's another out of the box thing, is starting to get the state child protective services going after the parents for allowing their children to be sent off out of state, other places, other countries, being used as a workforce, and the traumas that they're going through in these situations. Those are the steps we have to take. Look at this, folks, as in a major battle plan on multiple continents. What we're looking at is we're looking at it as each one of those continents where those battles are going on are all different topics that we're going over. And those are the different continents. Like, one is SA of children, one is work abuse of children, one is holding children as indentured servitude, another is elder abuse, another continent is the using of the funds from government assistance for elders, SSI, those kinds of things, taking those funds and not giving them what they're supposed to be getting, while you're claiming that you're giving them top-notch service. Each one of those little battles culminates, and it starts building a mountain that is being pushed against the organization. And
Right.
we have to remember, it's multiple levels, multiple things that are going to be going on. They eventually aren't going to have the ability to fight it on every single continent. And that's the thing.
So the very last thing is the corporate rights versus personal rights.
Now, I think this is a really interesting one. So
it is okay. So when you look at it, a religion or religious organization or a tax exempt organization is still a corporation or a sole proprietor or whatever type of company it is. It's still a company. It just happens to have tax status of exempt. So when you're looking at, let me give an example. Sometimes it's easier for me to give an example than it is to speak. You have a ladder maker, and the ladder maker makes this ladder, and there's 6 rungs. The third rung collapses every single time you stand on it. But they've got a little sign on there that says, don't use the third step or you're going to be sorry. Or it says, oh, don't worry about it. If you use it and you fall, you can't sue us because we told you about it, or we'll go into arbitration. Okay, what the hell? I can say hell because we're this far in.
oh yeah, you can say much worse than that. So
You can't. That's not the corporate right to do that. You can't do that. They can still sue you. It's the same. That's the same analogy to the stupid Church of Scientology. Oh, well, you have to sign this arbitration clause. You can't sue me. Your friends can't sue me. Your wife or husband can't sue me. None of your relatives for forever and ever for your next billion years can sue me. No, that's not. That's why I wanted a lawyer in here. I would love to sit and talk with Graham, whatever his name is, Graham Barry.
yeah.
He's the attorney on quite a few of these claims of saying that's apples and oranges. corporate rights to personal rights, and your corporate rights is overtaking your civil rights.
And let me address something here. Colonel Brock is saying suing is not the same as winning. If you look at situations like farmers being sued over patents for seed crops and things like that, they get the farmers to the point where they literally bankrupted them, took their property from them, took their life savings from them. All right. And whether you may not get an actual declaration of winning in court, you still won because you broke them. So suing may not be the same as winning, but if it causes enough damage, it may be the win that is needed. So got to look at it from several different ways. We're talking about outside the box here. This is where we are, we're looking at different ways that affect things. And that's where I was talking about the multiple levels, the multiple points of incursion, multiple points of action. These are how you take an organization this large and this well funded, and you start chipping away. Every one of those little battles chips away a piece of the foundation that they're sitting on. So they're all important just in their own way. So
yep. And I see Feral Cheryl's in the chat, and I was going to say something a couple of subjects ago. Last night I was watching your lovely get together down at Clearwater, and where those kids were walking in across the street at 10:30 at night to go do their auditing. There was at least 2 of them. That made me so mad.
Well, I mean, we had the stream where we talked about the Mace Kingsley and showing where Hubbard himself in his doctrine states a 1-day-old can be audited and should be audited. We talked about children having to go through the purification rundown. And I showed how manufacturers of the sauna units themselves say you should not have children in there unattended for more than a few minutes at a time. It's a medical fact that a lot of children under the age of 12 have the problem of being able to control their own body temperatures, which is why it is so dangerous for them. Then you add in the fact that you have situations where you are shoving a monstrous amounts of niacin into people. I mean, how is that a good thing for a child?
It's not.
And, Mona and I are both parents. Our kids are adults now, but I would not allow my children to go into either dry or steam saunas when they were kids, because I talked to our pediatrician who went through all those years of college and then further training to specify on children. And they're like, no, don't put your kids in there. That's bad for them. They can't handle that kind of heat. Well, I can tell you that me as an adult, I have a hard time in one of those saunas. So why would I put my children in there? So that, these are things that have to be addressed and they have to be gone at. Let's see here.
Well, you said think outside the box. And these are the ramblings that have been running through my brain. I have one other huge thing going on, but I can't publicize that yet. We have a huge thing going on, but these are all things that are outside the box that people can work on diligently and not just point and say, geez, somebody should do this. Take it upon your heart and say, okay, I'll do this and run with it.
And
be
for
the lead.
Haggis Basher, your question was, what can a police force do when it comes to trying to investigate a religion when they say it's part of their process? The way that I always handled that, and we had more than one situation where we've had People who were wanted for felonies, things like that, have ran to churches, and the the minister, the priest, whoever will say, I'm allowing them sanctuary. The way I handle those things is I go straight to the DA and to the city's attorneys and let them bash it out, because this is the kind of stuff where they, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. But at some point, I've actually seen departments where they've literally encircled a church, won't let anyone in or out. And they're going to, at some point, they're going to have to come out for one reason or another. So there's been lots of ways it's been handled. But for me personally, I always went to the people who were most knowledgeable, certified, and trained for it. Adam Carmona, maybe sauna manufacturers should be contacted. Well, these are things that sauna manufacturers put specifically into their websites. It's not a matter of contacting them. It's a matter of the people who install the saunas. Those are the ones. Find out which company is installing these saunas that are being used on children, put that out, or go to them and say, hey, you're putting these in and they're using these for children, and they're going to go, well, nothing I can do. Well, you know what if you end up on the news tonight talking about children are put through it? These are things, but you have to be very careful. You have to know who's actually doing it. All right. You go after somebody's business and they didn't actually do anything wrong, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble. Rib Guy, I've done the purification rundown 3 times. That explains why I'm all screwed up. I think it's because of your addiction to ribs. It might be.
I think so too.
It's all that vinegar in the barbecue sauce. Bonnie Bell, a contract that binds you for 1 billion years cannot be enforced for obvious reasons. I would say so, but a great example of something like this is timeshares. How they word it so that when you pass, the obligation directly falls onto your children. And that's kind of backed by a lot of state laws, where state laws say that if you die and you own X amounts of money in certain states, you can be held liable for the debts of your parents. So that's how a lot of those work. And even if
Jeffrey, I was going to say, Jeffrey Augustine and I were talking about the other day, is that the 1 billion year contract isn't necessarily a contract. It's a commitment. And it's kind of like similar to those that are Christian giving their heart to Jesus. You're committing yourself for the next 1 billion years. That's how, and anybody can tell me I'm wrong, but that's the way Jeff was explaining it to me.
But the difference is I haven't seen a church come after people and go, you gave your heart to Jesus and now you're not part of the church, so we need your heart.
There's that. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that it's not the contract isn't for 1 billion years. It's the commitments for 1 billion years.
Yeah. And that's a very good point there. Yeah. Flea Factory. Okay. I was wondering if there's a psychologist in the house. I seriously question if mental illness can be contagious, because of a lot of Scientologists seems like ramblings of a lunatic. It's not a matter of contagion on the psychological level. It's a matter of becoming invested into something. What's that?
Oh, no. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just.
It's a matter of being. Oh, and Janelle's here. Janelle is actually an attorney, and I don't believe an actual practicing attorney at this time, has gone on to different levels, but you had some questions possibly for an attorney, and Janelle may be able to have some answers for us.
So Journey 2020, when we were talking about that, when Jeffrey and I were talking about that, it's because you sign the commitment for 1 billion years, but you also sign the contracts for the arbitration. So there's 2 different things.
And that's the thing is that you say you're making a commitment to it, but you're also signing over legally the rights to go through the legal processes. They have to be handled by the church's arbitration. Yep. I know it don't make no sense, but again, we don't make the laws. It's it's the politicians that are making the laws. It's the courts, which are raising their own rules of how things are happening. And that's where it just gets so messed up. And let's also remember there are a lot of things within the teachings of Scientology. Wasn't it Hubbard who tried to submit, I think it was Dianetics, to the American Psychological Association to have it turned down because it actually appeared to be a Freudian treatment plan that Freud himself had abandoned because it was too damaging to the patient, making them utterly reliant upon the whoever is giving the treatment. So there's a, that, I think that's one of the things that really brings about this hatred of psychiatrists and the mental society.
I don't know if we've just been around too much Scientology speak, but either I'm starting to understand your ramblings.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Huh?
Here's the thing, Flea Factory, and Flea Factory says, I'm just amazed they recruited so many people in the first place. I feel like literally signing away your rights might be a red flag. One of the things you got to think about in this is when you have the corruption that has gone on in the religious community outside of Scientology, there are a lot of people who it's been almost compartmentalized. The United States was basically the US. You had Christianity, and that was pretty much it. When the 60s, 70s, and forward started coming along, and the introduction of a lot of different spiritual and religious beliefs started coming in, a lot of people started questioning their own beliefs. A lot of people started searching for the right way for them to go forward and what they felt best met with their needs. And they were jumping in with Scientology, and they were jumping in with a lot of other cults. And it's just a matter of people are looking for the truth. And sometimes you get so deadlocked into being part of a group that you lose who you are and what your original ethics.
And go back and think of the second gens that were born into it.
Yeah.
This was normal. The speak, the expectations going into the Sea Org was normal and expected and glorified.
And and Rib Guy says it pretty good. It's along the same lines. You're searching for it. Someone reaches out to you and says, I have the answer. And you go in, and all of a sudden everybody is like, oh, you have come to the right place. The things that this has done for me, it has changed my life. You start becoming part of this group, and you start getting this positive feedback, and it starts releasing endorphins. You start feeling so great about yourself. You think that you're actually making progress with it, and you start letting your guard down. There are physicists who are Scientologists. There are doctors that are Scientologists. And the thing is that they all, at one point or another, were searching for an answer, and they felt they got it from Scientology. And that's where that's how they ended up there. And just like Mona said, you have the children of Scientologists being born and raised into it. They know no other way of being. Here, Janelle, in the US, we allow so much under religious freedom. When we have snake handling, and children are allowed to handle rattlesnakes with a religious ceremony, saunas aren't likely to be prohibited. That's an excellent point. I've been to actual snake handling churches and witnessed it, but I'd never seen children. But I'm not doubting you. I think that you're very valid in that. I've just never witnessed it myself, but I have personally been to those churches and watched those folks bring out a box and suddenly pull out rattlesnakes and copperheads, and they're holding them, handfuls of them, dancing around and singing and all that. Never seen a person actually bit by one of those snakes. I've seen video of it, but I've never personally seen it. I wouldn't doubt it that, just because I didn't personally see someone get bit doesn't mean it never happened. So I believe that, them allowing children to do it. Wow. That's some scary stuff. Let's see. Sir Crepitus. It always amazes me when Scientologists and doctors fall for COS nonsense. They are people of science. You would think all of them would be able to see through the crap. Well, I think that, again, it's you're in a low place and you're searching for some meaning. You're searching for some escape of what you believe. You're looking for some kind of guidance. You're feeling oftentimes alone and needing people. And you get into this, you're suddenly being just completely blanketed with positive, and you're great. When you get through this, you're not going to believe how it's going to be. This is how you get those people in, even people of science, you know. Let's see. Scientist Poe, not Scientologist, LOL, goofy guy. No, but what I'm saying is that you have people that are very, very considered knowledgeable, and they're considered well-trained and should be able to look at things from a different standpoint, but they're still human beings. And a lot of people need that ability to feel like they're connected to something, and that they're doing something for the greater good. And it gets them in really easy. Trisha, sometimes those
I was
snakes
going
have
to
your
ask
mouth
you to
punctured.
pull this one up.
Yeah. Now the churches that I went to where I saw this firsthand, they weren't. I've been to India, and I've seen the snake handlers in India and Southeast Asia who do like the snake dancing and all that stuff, where the snakes literally have their mouths sewn shut. I also see them pulling the fangs out of the snakes. So it could be, but I know with some of those churches they do that. They none
Pull
of
up
them
crickets.
Cricket,
Pull up
cricket.
crickets. Comment.
I've known lots of doctors who are easy to fool. Just don't try that with a nurse. There you go. Yeah, I've always found nurses are the yeah, they don't play no games. Adam Carmona, scientists are specialists, but not necessarily have a grasp on the ultimate reality. And that's where the cults come in. There you go. You know, and that's the thing is that no one knows. No one, I mean, as a person of religious belief, you know in your heart what is going to happen once you leave this earth, but no one can actually prove it in a scientific form. So even scientists can't say for sure. They can say what they believe or what science has told them will happen, but there's always going to be that resounding question in the back of their head, and that's going to make them vulnerable as well. Let's see. Yeah.
What's that old saying? If you don't believe in something, you'll fall for everything.
There you go.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
I haven't heard that one in a long time, but that's a very, very good statement there. Let's see here. Yeah, Marjan, that's where I saw him in Eastern Kentucky and into Virginia, West Virginia is where I saw him. So, all right, folks, if you've got more questions, just throw them in there. Let's get through some of these and see what folks are saying. Sometimes they even have venom. Yeah, I mean, it's called a venomoid snake. And it believe me, I've run into more than my share of them running the Southeast Michigan Reptile Rescue. You see a lot of them, but here's the really crazy thing. My friend Jim Harrison, the Kentucky Reptile Zoo, has posted numerous times venomoid snakes that have had their venom sacs removed. And when they do put them through the venom extraction process, they're still producing venom, even though they don't have venom sacs. It's scary. And you also got to remember, removing those venom sacs doesn't mean they won't grow back. Yeah.
Sir Crepitus, you're horrible.
We already know it. My gosh. I'd love to see an interview. I'd love to see you interview Steve Hassan about why people join cults. He was recruited as a Moonie. I've reached out to Steve Hassan and asked, but I've never gotten a response. But yeah, Janelle, I'd love to do that. Yeah, it's a good statement. Scientology is a snake handling religion. The snake just happens to be Hubbard. Yeah. So, all right, folks, I want to talk about another topic here real quick. Is that I posted something on my community page about I have an opportunity to go out of country to help assist in tracking down someone who was on the show To Catch a Predator who fled the United States. And there's a whole lot that goes into this. Number one is not just the fact of going after this person, but while doing it, I will be able to audit Scientology missions, orgs, whatever they want to call them in each of those respective countries in 3 separate countries on this trip. So, but the thing is that, I've been asking if folks would be interested, but if you guys are interested in seeing me doing it, here's the thing. I need help. And if you can help assist in that, please do. If not, then, I've got a friend that's over there. They're just not wanting to do it by themselves. That's why I was asked if I would be part of it, because it doesn't matter if it's the least volatile person there can be. The fact is there's always that question in the back of your mind, and having a retired police officer joining you for that is something that would make them feel much safer with it. So, if y'all like to see me do it and you want to help me do it, let me know, please. I think that this would be a monumental thing, not only on the point of, tracking down someone who has predated on children, but also on being able to show how Scientology is in different countries, and then using that also as a learning tool for folks who are wondering about auditing Scientology or protesting Scientology in different countries and how those laws play in. So just want to know if y'all are interested in something like that, please let me know. If you're willing to help out, let me know. I looked at the one I had starred. Yeah, and also Mona Englert, in those countries, in the downtime, I do plan on doing some herping so that I can go after these. So do you guys think I should just put out my PayPal or whatever? Because like I've said, I don't make any real money off of doing YouTube. It doesn't even pay for my cigarettes for a month, and I'm retired, but this is something I would love to do. And I think that I think that would be another great point to the channel, is going out there and going after these, some of these predators and things like that. I don't want to turn it into one of those channels where they're setting people up and doing that. And I don't want to be a bounty hunter, but true cases where people have actually fled after doing these things and tracking them down. Those are things that I'm interested in, just other content that we can bring to the channel. And, I love doing the Scientology stuff, but these are also things that I think are important. And it also ties in with the Scientology as to the abuses of the children. And if you're interested in helping, so I'm seeing a lot of positives on there. My PayPal is literally my email address. It's Poe on the go. So it's right down there. And if you do want to help, I really appreciate each and every one of you for doing it. This isn't going to be a vacation. I'm literally going to take a backpack with 1 or 2 changes of clothes, my bathroom stuff, and enough underwear to carry me. And we're just basically going to be doing washing my clothes in the sink and hanging them out over the railing while I'm there. But the thing is that, how do I take this out of my family's finances to do it when my pension is paying our bills and it's paying for us to eat and survive, and then put this burden on it? So that's one of the things. That's why I'm asking. I don't like doing this, but I don't know how else to do it. So, and Mona cut me off on her credit card, so I don't know what to do. So, let's see here. I'll tell you, Canadian girl, I'll make it very clear. And if I don't meet the goal, then I'm just going to have all the, what anybody gives pushed back. So, once I'll know what's a reasonable goal. I mean, it's literally going to cost like $2,000 just in the air fees to go where I'm going. And then I'm not worried about like eating and drinking, and the person that I'm going to be there assisting, we're going to share the expenses. We found that going through Airbnb, we can actually get a place to stay at about half the price of staying in hotels while we're there. So that's, I'm always looking for the best ways to get the price down. And that's one of the things I was looking at with the airfare and all that. It's just that this literally fell in my lap, and I'm just trying to figure out a way to do it. No, I know she won't. She cut me off. She's like, you spent what on Amazon? And I'm like, come on. How's it not going to help? But she, Mona cracks the whip. So I got to do what I got to do. Flea Factory, email me and I'll give you a write-up. I don't use Venmo. I use PayPal. I don't know any of the others. I'm old school, and I'm a bit technologically underdeveloped on those things. And, my kids know that stuff better than I do. Marjan 5K would be more than enough. I was looking at like 3 or 4, but 5K would definitely handle it. But thank you. Oh, let's see. What did Mischief say? Mischief manager's calling you out for cutting me off on that credit card. Really? You can get Airbnb gift cards? I didn't even know they did that. SJ, Mona, do you know anything about who actually sued the Catholic Church? I thought it was more than, I thought there was actually a class action on some points, and then there were individuals, but do you know any more on that?
I don't know.
Let's see. Janelle, do you know, about that? I thought that there were class actions and there were individual lawsuits against and I'm not Catholic. I'm not trying to be insulting to anyone who's Catholic about this, but I believe it's like the archdiocese or whatever that run a specific area. Well, Joe, you talking about the laser? My gosh. But I'm staying busy as can be on that, but I'm literally right now at the point where I've been doing everything that if I sell something that I'm making on the laser, it's pretty much paying for the material to do it and using the electricity and everything else for it. I'm not really making any money off of it yet because I just don't have enough orders coming in for it. But that's one of the things I'm really looking. Why don't you know, Janelle? I thought you knew about these things. Mona and I both looked at you and we said, Janelle is knowledgeable. No, I'm joking, but thank you. Yeah, I know it's all in what you understand. So, all right, folks. So Mona, you got any parting thoughts for us here on this?
Thank you for letting me think outside the box. Thank you for letting me show pictures of parts of my brain.
And that's the thing, folks. Don't think that because you come up with something and go, nah, that's too crazy. We can't do that. Bounce it off other people. See what they say. And if someone comes to you with something and says, hey, I got this idea, please have enough integrity not to take someone else's idea, run with it, and not get them the credit for it. That's something I see people doing a lot of times. Is that you'll see people take someone else's idea, run with it, and try to claim it as their own. That's why I bring the sources on for things like this. That's why I say Mona is one of the underrated, undersung heroes in this.
Okay, I'm gonna hold 180 degrees to that. If there was an idea that compelled to you, to run with it, and it's yours. Have at it. Do it. Yeah. Make it good.
Yours.
Do a good job.
Yeah.
Fly, little birdies, fly.
But something along the lines, folks, if you have an idea, just make sure you research and look into it. And that's why also talking to other people helps. because as Mona was talking about earlier, having these basic like brainstorming groups that you're doing, you're gonna realize, no, this isn't possible. Yeah, that's a great idea. Never even thought about that. It can go so many different ways. And so don't be afraid to talk to other people and see what they got to say. And
Big
folks,
hugs to you too, Feral Cheryl.
yeah, well, if she's sunburnt, she ain't giving nobody hugs because she was out there on the beach today. But folks, as always, thank you so much for being here with us. There are so many battles that are going on behind the scenes. A lot of people don't know, but there's also a lot of people who have unimaginable abilities to come up with ideas and think about, well, this worked for that. This worked in another case. This worked in another situation. And these are the things that, if it worked in another situation, why can't it work here? So don't be afraid to think about things. Just, let your mind expand, and don't think you're stupid. You can come up with things. You can figure things out. And if, just like I always say, make that first move, because that's where you're able to realize that, yes, you can do something. Don't doubt yourself. I believe in you. Mona believes in you.
I believe in you.
Just believe in yourself. You can do this. And as always, folks, remember, life is short. You get one shot. Make it count.